All right, so you want to get your message out there, and you've heard that stories is, one of the most effective ways to do so, and that's absolutely correct. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they struggle because they don't know how to effectively structure their story so that the audience is engaged and also walks away taking action. And that is really the downfall. This is what we see in a lot of scenarios today, where people get up and they'll ramble on for 4, 6, 10 minutes telling a story, and you're sitting there listening to them going, what are you talking about? It's disconnected. You're not sure what they're meaning, and then it just seems like a big waste of time. Now, we can let the other people struggle with that, because today what we're going to show you is one very effective story structure. And when you know the structure, it's going to make storytelling so much easier, because you're going to know the points that you need to hit. And it's simple. There's only three very simple points that when you do it, you'll be able to get up impromptu situations, or even before thinking about it. It's going to make effectively sharing a story that's going to have an impact and grab the audience's attention. It's going to make it so much easier. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The structure that we're talking about is called then, now, how. Okay? And so then, now, how. Why this is so simple and so effective is that the way we start this off is you begin by describing then. So you're going back to the point of struggle, of conflict, of where you were. So in this, when you're describing the then, you're looking at the past. You're describing, if it's a personal story, 3 years ago, a struggle that you were having. So when we're doing this, you want to get into the what, the why, the where, the who. Describe the scene. So first thing, you want to describe the scene so the audience has context to know who are the characters, where are you, because then they can be hooked into it. So you're in story mode. You actually get into the mode when you're describing where it was, and you set that context of then. So first we set the context, then you start describing what is the conflict. Okay, so conflict is, there's always a struggle, and this could be man versus man, so man, you versus somebody else, man versus themselves, and that's you versus yourself. So it could be perhaps an inner conflict that happened. It could be man versus environment, right? Man versus society. These are all different conflict lines. So again, you want to figure out what is the conflict, but there's always going to be some type of conflict, of struggle, because that's what's going to hook the audience in. There's got to be some dramatic area there. So we've described where it is, we've described the conflict you've gone into, and when you're describing the conflict, you'll be sharing the struggle that was going internally, maybe it's the thoughts, the feelings, the doubts that you had. Again, connect with this, because when we're connecting with this element, back then, what happens is the audience, they could be currently going through that right now, so that's when they connect to that, like, oh, I went through that too. And that's building familiarity. And the more commonality and familiarity we have with the speaker, guess what? The more engagement and connection we have. We're like, okay, that's a lot better. So we're doing this, you're building that connection, and so you're describing the then, the struggle, the conflict, and we keep it stuck, right? So then, that's the first piece. The second piece is we fast forward, we transition to now. So when we're in the now state, we're describing where you are now. Presumably it's going to be a lot better, right? So it's a lot better, more optimistic, and you're sharing, the successes that you had. So what we did first is we primed over here, we primed the then, we got that going, the conflict, the despair, the doubts. And then over here in the now, we start describing the transformation. What shifted in your life? How is it so much better? And we really want to emphasize the gap. So over here, I was struggling. Over here, I'm optimistic, I'm confident, I'm happy. Whatever it is, we're describing how your life has improved, how your situation has improved, how your workplace has improved, how it has got better. So we want to really emphasize this, because then people are going to say, wow, they went from there to here. That's really interesting. Beautiful. You might be thinking that right now. That's really interesting. What is the next step? I'm glad you asked. So we're over here. You drive up the now of how it's so much better, and then we get into the how. And that's step 3. Step 3 is the how. Because what's happening is the audience has seen they were struggling. Now they're in a lot better place. Their own curiosity, they're going to want to know, well, what can I do, or what did you do to make this happen? And so they could be curious about your story, but also it's going to be, what can they take away from it? So that's when we're in the how, and these are your action steps. This is the transformation. This is where you describe what steps did you take to get from struggling over here to succeeding over here. And that's where you get into it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. You don't have to number them, but it's just in sequence of how can you flow it out to take all those action steps moving forward. And so when you do that, you're giving them a roadmap. You're giving them value. You're giving them hope. And so then they're connecting with it going, okay, what is it that I can do? And they're going to be taking elements away. So then in the how, you're describing the action steps that they could take and that you took to make it happen. And then this is the key here. At the end, this is one of the biggest mistakes people make is even so they say they don't have a story, right? They don't know the structure that you now have. They're going to get up, they'll ramble, and it's not going to go anywhere. But the other thing too is they tell a story just to tell a story, and that doesn't leave impact. We're over here only focusing on one thing, and that's you tell a story to tell a point. So as you're describing the how, the end of it, how we wrap this up in a big bow for the audience to say, here's a gift, take action with this, you can improve your life, you can be inspired, and this is really the key, you speak to transform, is that you want to tell them what is the point, what is the takeaway. So you shared your story, you shared where you were, you shared where you are now, you shared how you did it, and now it's a takeaway point. We wrap this up by saying this is something that you can do. And when we do this, you tell a story to tell a point. So even when you're sitting back thinking of what story it is that you can put out there, really when you start listing out the story, you always want to focus on what is the point, what is the lesson that I can share to them. And that's really what makes this a big difference for them to have more value. So for example, we shared a quick structure. The point of this is that the next time you walk out and you have an opportunity to share a story, and stories can work in any setting. This is informal with friends and family or professionally. Tell a story, tell a client success story, tell something that you went through. You can apply stories everywhere because they are so much more memorable and it makes it stick. And so when you do this, it makes a huge difference. So now for you, the takeaway is that embrace stories, right? Embrace stories because they are the most effective way to share your message in a bigger way. Utilize the then, now, how structure to make it a lot easier and way more effective for you to put it out there and have fun with it. Take that and comment below. Let me know how this helped you and any questions that you might have.